People often tell the story of Pearl Harbor as if the Japanese attack in Hawaii happened completely out of the blue, with no warning and nothing to suggest there might be trouble. In reality, there were plenty of warning signs. But to understand how the attack on Pearl Harbor happened, we need to go back in time a bit. Sometimes, Americans think of 1941 as the beginning of World War II, but that was just when the United States got involved. The war had actually started 2 years earlier, in September 1939. That's when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. France and Great Britain declared war on Germany 2 days later. It wasn't long before the war took over Europe. Between April and June 1940, Germany invaded Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. In June, Germany picked up some help from Italy, which declared war on Britain and France. And in July, Germany started bombing Great Britain. Sounds complicated, doesn't it? That's what most Americans thought too back when all this was happening. At the time, many people in the United States were in favor of a policy called isolationism, which basically means minding your own business. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt was concerned about the situation, but he understood that most Americans didn't want to go to war. The U.S. government sent supplies to Great Britain, but refused to send troops, even though Britain's Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, had asked for help. Roosevelt had made a promise to the American people. "We will not participate in foreign wars, and we will not send our army, naval, or air forces to fight in foreign lands outside of the Americas, except in case of attack." But that promise got harder and harder to keep. Germany wasn't the only country trying to take over other nations. Japan was doing the same thing. For 2 centuries, Japan had kept to itself, an isolated island nation. That started to change in 1853, when Commodore Matthew Perry led a U.S. Navy expedition into what is now called Tokyo Bay, trying to open up Japan to trade with other nations. By the 1920s, Japan was deeply involved in trade with other countries. It used some of the money that brought in to build a naval force. Then, Japan's military leaders decided it was time to expand the empire by taking more land. In 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, an area in northeast China. By 1937, it had launched a full-scale invasion of China. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese people were killed. The United States sent millions of dollars in relief funds to China, but refused to get involved in the fighting. When Germany started invading all those other countries in Europe, Japan's military leaders decided to grab even more territory. Since much of Europe was busy fighting the Nazis, it seemed like a perfect time for Japan to invade French Indochina, the part of East Asia that now includes Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. American leaders worried the Philippines, then under U.S. control, might be next. Colonialism. Right about now, you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute. What are countries like France and the United States doing in East Asia anyway? The answer to that question has to do with colonialism. That's the policy of taking over other countries, sending settlers, and using those countries' natural resources. European nations, and later the United States, engaged in this practice throughout history. That's why many people of East Asia weren't in charge of their own lands back then. The United States had taken control of the Philippines from Spain in a war in 1898. And why did Spain have the Philippines to begin with? Because explorer Ferdinand Magellan had landed there in 1521, so Spain could take it from the people who lived there.